I'm muted. What's going on, people? How are we all doing today? Welcome back to another show. Panel. Apologies. There is a bit of a delay because Josh King hasn't joined the stream yet, but you have Brian Daigle and Sai in the building. Hope you all had a good Christmas. Hope you're all enjoying yourselves today. Let's start with Brian in the building today. How are we doing? How was your Christmas yesterday?
It was good, mate. Went to see the Ferrari movie, which I fell asleep in, so I missed half of it. And then had Chinese food, so saw half a movie and lots of Chinese. Great day.
Sai, I saw you got pictures. You were out and about enjoying your Christmas evening. How were you doing today?
Not bad, mate. Good to see you guys. Hello, Brian. Nice to see you as always.
Pleasure.
Legend. Yeah, not bad, mate. A few sea walks. I went for a dip in the sea, which was nice as well. Get the old toxins going in the body. So yeah, it's good fun, mate. Hope you had a good one as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I did. I had a lovely day yesterday, and I hope everyone out there, all the commenters, everyone watching the show, had an unbelievable Christmas. Spent some really good time with the family, got all the gifts that they wanted, and let's hope Spurs can give them some Christmas joy as well. Oh, Josh King is in the building. Give me a sec. Let me just get this sorted.
Big JK.
Big JK. One sec. If I add that, there we go. Might have to adjust my.
Just been getting an alarm clock for Christmas.
Might have to adjust. Might have to adjust my screen. One sec to fit it. I'm trying to work this out. Oh, there we go. That's a bit better.
On the fly. Well done, Sim.
On the fly. How are we doing, Josh? You had a nice Christmas yesterday?
Yeah, it was really good. Just to be honest with you, while I was late, I'm running around trying to fix the kids' toys and stuff like that, and trying to get every battery I can in the house because nothing comes with battery. And I promised them that I'd sort out their lightsabers before I got on this and left them for an hour or two. So that's all it was.
Lovely. What color lightsabers they got?
Well, I've got a red one, Darth Vader.
Classic.
Yeah. My son's actually called Kylo as well, so he's got a bit of Star Wars.
See.
But yeah, he's got a white one, and then my other one's got a green one.
Beautiful. Well, I hope everyone is doing well out there. Ryan Isaacs with a chat in a members chat straight away says, I say City are favourites for top four just. And that is actually the topic of the first topic we're going to discuss, because Spurs, obviously, off the back of now 3 consecutive wins, albeit Sunday's win was, you can say, quite fortunate. I think we can all agree, although it was gritty, and I think it was a good win, but definitely rode our luck. But after going those 5 winless games, and we were struggling, to get points, we have come back into form and won 3 games in a row. We currently sit in 4th at Christmas, albeit Man City, have a game in hand. But we do sit behind Aston Villa. So I'll go to Josh here. Are we favourites for top 4 at the moment? Would you say, in terms of, I know we all know Josh has a reputation of being pessimistic or being realistic, as he would say. What do you reckon? Do you reckon the bookies have us as favourites for top 4? Do you think that we are a safer bet than some of the other teams at the moment?
The bookies, I think the bookies would probably side with us because they like a lot of historical data, and they will go off the fact that we've qualified. Can you hear me well, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay, good. The screen just went a bit funny there, but yeah.
I'm just trying to solve, because there's a bit of some reason it's a bit weird. I'm trying to figure it out, but anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so I think the bookies would, because they look at the historical stuff, and we've obviously qualified so many times in the past decade, and we're a safer bet than someone like Villa, who hasn't done it in probably since the 80s or something. I don't know. And yeah, so yeah, bookies wise, maybe my personal opinion is that on this side of January, where Villa have a stronger squad than us, we don't have. What are you laughing at?
Simon, I went from having half my head off and Simon fit in, so then Simon's.
I'm gonna have to get the yellow pages out.
Just the overlay, see if I can fit a better one. But keep going, Josh. People can hear you.
I thought my opinions were that outlandish. They just openly were laughing. But yeah, so I think this side of January, February even, where we've still got the weakest squad out of the top 5, I'd say, weakest available squad. It's not that we have the weakest squad. I do believe our first 11, if it was fit all year, I actually believe that it could probably challenge for the title the way that this league is right now. But I believe that we will have probably more injuries. Yeah. We already are losing 3 of our best players to AFCON and the Asia Cup or whatever. And then these people that are getting excited about Van der Ven and Maddison maybe coming back in January and Bentancur, that's not actually what Ange said. You know, Ange said that none of them are close to first team training. He said Van der Ven might be a bit ahead of schedule. And they're January-ish, which to me means either late January or probably like maybe start training in January, late January, and then they'll be playing in February. So with that in mind, I think there's a chance for teams like Villa, if they continue how they have been, to build a little gap between us. And then it's like, where are we, let's say, mid to end of February? Are we still within touching distance? If we are, yes, I think we could be favourites. But right now, I don't see us as favourites, no, to be honest with you.
Don't see us as favourites. Even though we have, with injuries, though, I know our form in terms of results-wise, it did dip. But we have, do you not think we've shown like quite a good level of consistency, just a performance level throughout the whole season, even though obviously there have been games where we have dips and we have had poor performances, but by and large, would you not agree our performance levels have been generally consistent, even during that period with injuries?
Yeah, I'd say it's been better than I thought it was going to be, definitely. But, you know, the past 2 games haven't been great, to be honest. They've actually been quite poor as far as performance goes. I don't think we can keep that up. And I also don't think we can expect Ange to continue working miracles, because what you've got to understand is like these little injuries that we get right now where we've had our full squad mean that we're going to our B team in January. If we're starting to get injuries to our B team players and stuff like that, what are we even going to be doing? So I actually think that, and this is because I'm pessimistic, but I think it could get worse before it gets better. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, look, I'm happy with what Ange has done. I've got no problem with the manager. I'm over the moon that he's ours and stuff like that. But I just don't think that he can continue working miracles all the time. Depends. If we go and sign 3 players in January, I'll totally change my tune, but I don't think we will.
Sai, where do you stand on that? Do you think that the way Spurs have played this season means that right now that top 4, I wouldn't say it's theirs to lose, but are they the favourites to make it ahead of like a team like Villa, or it will ahead of Man City at the moment? But obviously, I don't think anyone would say we're favourites to finish above them. But you know, looking at the top 4 at the moment, you got to say City, Liverpool, and Arsenal are probably shoo-ins. So when you're looking at, and given that the fact that top 5, that 5th place isn't by no means guaranteed to be Champions League, you've got to be looking at top 4 at the moment. So if you're looking at a straight shootout between us and Villa, do you have us as favourites for that?
Favourites is a bit of a difficult word. I think both the teams are quite balanced. Obviously, Villa have had an exceptional season, as have we, to be honest. There's always that argument out there about injuries, the I word that people don't like to use, and I think that's kind of correct. Really, we have to be like balanced in the mindset. Josh has made some really good points, in particular about the players that would be disappearing in January. I think this is a really fundamental point. There's some significant players going in that January-February period. Some of which obviously there's suspensions and things as well on top of that. But if we do get the likes of Van der Ven and Madders back, it does help a lot. But I still think there's a few gaps there. And I think that's where, if we want to get the top 4, I think we need to go and get the business done early in January. If it's going to happen, we have to do it. And I'm hoping, because Paratici's been to pretty much all the games this year and he's still doing some work in the background, we all know that we're not going to fall on the laurels of previous seasons. Brian and I made a bit of a joke the other day about the transfers and things in one of the other groups, that The summer was great. Like, we didn't anticipate this great season ahead of us, but the summer was great. It was done in a great fashion that we're not really used to. But that only counts if you're going to do that in the January and the summer and the windows beyond that. So if that doesn't happen, it's kind of falling back on where it used to go, where we're like getting to that line and then not going over that line. It's just that inconsistency of trying to push the barriers. So this is where I think is really fundamental. So it's a bit of a balancing act, in my opinion, between Villa and Spurs right now. I think in the longevity of the season, Villa might go and buy a couple of players because they're in a position now where they're like us, where they're like, oh, we weren't expected to be up here, but we need to take the initiative. And the Villa board, from historic aspects and the last few seasons particularly, don't wait around. So this is where I think this defines whether Daniel has had an epiphany and actually realized that there's something serious going on here, kind of like the early stages of Pochettino almost, but maybe even stronger potentially because of the kind of players we're bringing in quickly, that we go and push for that fourth. So it's too difficult for me to say like we're favourites, but I do honestly think that it'd be between us and Villa. I think anyone below sixth now, I know we're talking about 6 points, but the history of some of those clubs that are in those positions, I don't think they've got enough. We've seen Newcastle faltering. They've got injuries left, right and centre as well, of course. But I do think we would get the fourth or fifth. But that's as good as answer you're going to get from me right now.
Brian,
Yep.
we're talking about us versus Villa, but considering that we've had this injury crisis since the end of October, we also went 5 winless games after taking the lead 5 consecutive games. Villa, in terms of injuries, have been fairly injury-free. I know they had Mings right at the beginning of the season, but by and large, have had pretty much, I can't think of a major injury they've had in a key position yet this season. And they've beaten the likes of, I think they won obviously all their home games apart from the Sheffield United game last week. And given all that, we're still only 3 points behind them. So, is it fair to say that, once we do get all our players back, and surely Villa are due a bad period as well, that there's, we're in a good position to challenge them?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, you look at the difference. When we talk about Villa's injuries, they had Tyrone Mings on the first day, and straight away they had Pau Torres, some of that quality ready to step in immediately. We haven't had that, unfortunately. We know we haven't got the squad in depth. So where Villa have had injuries, they've had a quality replacement ready to come in, where we know we haven't, and we don't. I actually think we are favourites. I really do. But again, touching on what both Josh and Simon said, it all depends what we do in January, because we keep talking about touching on what Josh said about Maddison and Van der Ven. When they do come back, it's going to take them a while to get match fitness. Are they going to come back at the form levels and the extremely high standards they set themselves straight away, or is it going to take a bit of time? We've also got the spine of our team. When you talk about injuries, Bentancur, you can add to that. You can also add the 3 players that are going away on international duties for their respective nations. So we're going into a time right now where we can do it, and I really believe we can. But January is a huge thing, because I can't remember a time where we've gone into January, A, in this position, but B, like 4 or 5 players, key players, unavailable. Thankfully, January, there isn't that many games. I think, like Josh said, if everyone comes back fit, if everyone comes back on the form that they had left themselves or departed on, then we've got every single chance. We should do it, no problem at all. But it's all if, whats and maybes. And again, like Josh said, if we start getting injuries to the big kind of team players, then we're in a bit of trouble. But I strongly believe that we can do this. I really do.
When you look at us and Villa, just purely on like the eye test, like when you're watching both teams play, do you think we are better than them? Do you like when you watch? But like, do you think when you're putting us up against Aston Villa, how we approach games, how we win games, like, do you think in general we are a better team?
I will say, if we had played Aston Villa in that first 10 games, or the 11th game rather than Chelsea or whatever it was, would we have beaten Villa? At home, probably. Really, I think we would have. Away, obviously, they've just... home, at Villa Park. They've only just dropped their first points in God knows how long. So I think it would depend where we were. But I think if we had first 11 against first 11, all on fire, I think we win. I think we beat them.
Yeah,
I
fair enough.
think
Go on, Josh.
personally that Villa are a bit more adaptable than us. I don't know if it's just like Emery has more top 5 league experience or whatever, but like they've shown that they really do have multiple ways of playing. I think we are better in our normal way of playing when we have our first 11, but you know, I've seen them do multiple things. Do you know what I mean? Like they really can sit back and play pragmatic and do that well as playing the high line. So it's a bit of a funny one, you know. I think they're better than a lot of people give them credit for. That's all I'm saying.
I feel like how Ange adapted to like a lot of our injuries and found solutions to a lot of the problems, mix things up and still got us playing good football even though we had lots of injuries. Like if Villa had some of the injuries we had, would Emery be able to keep up the standard performance that I know we dropped off obviously with results wise, but I thought the performance level was still kind of strong, and obviously we're back to winning ways at the moment. Like if Villa had a similar injury crisis, I feel like Emery I don't know if he would be able to cope with the injury crisis as well as we have. I don't know if his football is as adaptable as Ange. Like, would he be able to put I don't know like Ange has done with Kulusevski, be able to move him in the center and use him as a number 10 and just be adaptable. I feel like Emery sees players as quite rigid. I know he's mixed up with McGinn and a bit like he's played him a bit out wide, playing and inverting centre mid and stuff like that. But when I see Ange and how adaptable he is with players in certain positions, I feel like he might be a bit more flexible than Emery, albeit Emery is a bit more flexible with kind of formation. Sometimes it goes back 3, sometimes it goes with back 4. But I don't know. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like Emery would be able to cope with the injuries as well as maybe Ange has?
Me personally, probably not. I think you're right on that. But the other thing to mention is remember that 16-17 season where we literally just had Danny Rose injured? They could easily go 18 months without having major injuries like we do. So yes, I do think you're right. Ange probably has adapted better, but that might not be a factor. It might not be a factor.
I agree with that. For me, Villa's obviously home form has been exceptional. They've won 8 out of 9 games this season at home. They're unbeaten. I think they had a 15 game winning run at home before drawing at home Sheffield United on the weekend. I think their away form does. I mean, it has improved recently. I think they just about beat Brentford in their last away game. But when I watch them away from home, they definitely aren't as effective as they are at home, for sure. There does seem to be something where they get caught out a lot more away from home, and they're not as. I feel like they concede a lot more chances away from home as well. Maybe because they have this aggressive, intense nature which they play with at home, but maybe when teams attack them more away from home, they seem to give up a few more chances and struggle a bit more. I think their results prove that. I just look at us, and I think we control games better than Villa. I know they beat City and they beat Arsenal at home 1-0, 2 very good wins, and they've been fantastic at home all season. But when I look at how both teams control games in possession, how they both try to open up the opposition, and when they come up against set defenses, I feel like Emery's tactics usually rely on things going very well during the game, if you know what I mean. For example, when they beat Man City and Arsenal, they had to have taken the lead. Things had to have I feel like when, for example, they go 1-0 down against a team and then that team ends up sitting back and trying to frustrate them, they would struggle a lot more in those kind of situations than Spurs would. I think Spurs find a few more solutions, and I think we control games better. But Villa are very aggressive. They're very intense. And when they do take the lead, they're very hard. I think Emery tactically is very good at kind of exploiting the opposition when they try and get back in the game, and he's very tactical in that way. But I feel like the way we approach games is actually more likely over the long term to win more games, in my opinion, than the way Emery approaches games. What do you feel about that?
Well, yeah, I just want to very quick. Then there's a great comment in here from Tay Coconut, which says Villa is good when there's no pressure on them. We'll see how they do that when they're expected to win. And you could use the Sheffield United game as that example. 15 wins out of 15, home
Chance to go top, yeah.
A chance to go top. Listen, they did well to get the draw after going 1-0 down. I believe there was a VAR decision that was very, very controversial. So maybe it could have been a win. But this is the prime example, like when we were trying to go for our titles and there were those pivotal moments against West Ham, West Brom, the Battle of the Bridge. When we had that opportunity, we couldn't handle the pressure. And I think Tay Coconut saying that, like you said, with Villa beating Arsenal, Man U, there was no pressure. Yes, they were up there, but it was, if you win, that's incredible. But when the heat was really on, they were the first game of that week. You can go top of the league, put the pressure against it. They couldn't do it, whether you want to say that was due to the pressure or what Sheffield United had their moment, but it's a great point from him.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you think about that, Si? Like, do you think we're better suited to, in the long term, to winning more games than Villa, or do you think the way Villa play will ultimately stand them in good stead?
It is really a bit of both, to be honest. I think just from the longevity of the season, I think this is the key part is in the sense of that pressure point that Brian just mentioned as well. I do think that they, kind of like most teams really, but we play very well when we're in a nice flow and things are going well. It's sometimes looks a bit dodgy on the back foot, but that's because we have some of those really key players out. But we get by. It's a very different season to previous ones where you're sort of sitting there looking through your fingers, as it were, in the 90th minute. Whereas now there's still a constant belief, hence why people still stay around till 94, 95 minutes or more, even myself. And I think that's the key thing there, is that they've got essentially at the moment not too much depth. And I think that's where this next month or so, injuries do kick in around this period of time. There's no break or anything like that, of course, and it's difficult in the Premier League, and every team goes for it, which is why I've never really gone down that route of we're unlucky because we've got injuries. It's going to happen to every team. There's teams there. You could argue Liverpool and City are used to the pressure for many years of dealing with these situations, the positions that they're in. Look at Man City, exactly pretty much like last year. And Arsenal looked like they were going to win the title and everything. Arsenal may be a bit more equipped for this. So going back to that original point of them kind of having those positions wrapped up exactly defines where Villa and Spurs are, because we don't know. And both teams are in exact positions that they never thought they would be at the beginning of the season. So it is new territory, albeit we could argue that we had this 4 or 5 years ago, but it is, bar some of the players, a very different team. It's a very different mentality. I do think mentally we can be more equipped with it, just purely from what we've seen from this season so far, in the sense that there's been games where we think, oh, we're going to get a draw out of this, or we might lose this, and we go and switch it around in the last few minutes. So Villa haven't had too many of those kind of representations of what they could be capable of on that side of things. But as I said, I really think it's just down to the depth and the injuries now, because I don't think Villa could equip themselves with the loss of 2 or 3 key players like we have to then get through the rest of the season. And it goes back to my point about the window, in a sense that Villa have an opportunity to go, we're here now. Do we want to push this and see what we can get out of it? There's the risk of paying finances, etc. But Spurs are in an equal position where I hope that, because when Andrew's come in, he's obviously said at the beginning of the season, which everyone seems to forget, is that this is a development step-by-step process. I hope that in the last 6 months, the strategy has been there to identify players in this period of time to get us over that line. I'm not suggesting. I probably thought that they would think that we're going to get like top 8, top 6 somewhere. But the fact that we're here is this is the point now, is that there is a line, exactly as I said earlier, there's a line, and who wants to get over that line. And I think that's where those things get into the mindset of like, who wants it more. And I think it would define itself around who gets brought in, not so much the players that are in existence right now, is how much depth the teams need to get over it. So that's kind of where I'm thinking about it right now.
if you look at the table, obviously we've been talking about us versus Aston Villa and stuff like that. But when you look at the table, 4 points off the top of the league, after 18 games, with all the circumstances we've been going through. Josh, if we do add some additions in January, like in key positions where we are lacking depth, and obviously, hopefully, we get some players back. Hopefully, the end of January, beginning of Feb, like from injury, and then obviously mid-Feb, we get all the players from AFCON and Asia Cup back. Considering we are where we are, and given the circumstances we have had this season, is there any chance that we can even keep pace with the teams at the top, given the evidence that we've seen?
Yeah, if we had basically, for me, it's tough to answer that question until we actually reach that point. So until we have Maddison, Van der Ven, people back from AFCON.
Yeah, but we're 18 games in and we're still 4 points behind.
Yes, but the thing is, we're at this point where this period of the season, the table is always a bit funny at Christmas, I think, anyway, yeah. It's in the second half of the season where people start to really pull away. And that 4 points, if we go and lose to Bournemouth or Brighton or whatever, yeah, and the rest of them win, that becomes 7 points. It's so, and that actually does feel like a big amount to get back. So I feel like it's something that, is tough to say right now. If we have our first 11, yes, I think we could probably win the league from this. I honestly think if we could guarantee not having any injuries whatsoever, I think we could easily keep pace. Can you lot hear me, by the way? Or is it cutting out? Yeah. Okay, cool. But yeah, so yeah, I think the answer is yes, but it's just all injury dependent. And then also, I'm not banking on Levy. I reckon we'll get a centre back in early, and then we'll probably end up not getting much else, I think. Maybe a youth prospect or something like that. So, yes, if we signed 3 players in January, had injuries back, injured players back, then yes, we could keep pace. 100%. Probably might even build a gap, honestly. That's how I believe. But, yeah.
What do you think about that, Brian? Do you think there is a chance? Is there a chance something really special could happen this season? Do you think this January, we should be looking at it, given the position we are on the table, how we've been playing, and obviously the need for depth in certain positions, right? It's clear that if we can sort out a few of these problems, then we're onto something really, really good, obviously long term. But do you think the club should, 4 points off the top of the league going into January, after 18 games, in previous seasons, we might have seen this as an opportunity to really push something. And obviously, we don't usually take those opportunities, but we could see it as one. Do you see this as an unbelievable opportunity to actually really push the top 3 potentially?
So the way I look at it, top 3, I think we can all safely assume that the filth, Man City, and Liverpool are 3 of those positions. I think we can all safely assume that.
I agree with you, Brian. We can all agree they're definitely going to be in the top 4, right? But is there absolutely no chance that we can?
This is what I'm alluding to. We know we're going for the 4th.
Go on, Josh. You want to just quickly?
Yeah, sorry, something that I didn't say that I think will add to this is how can you, just before we expect to drop more points, when we know 3 of our first 11 are going away 100%, and we don't have 3 or 4 of our other first 11, how could you then even think that we are then going to start winning the league? That even being 4 points off the top when we then expect to drop more points, lose more players, the answer I should have said is no, really. Do you know what I mean? Because we're not going to have those players. We know that for this month of football, 6 weeks of football, we're not going to have those players. So I don't believe so. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's right. All I was going to continue with is what we've got to remember as well is January isn't just how well we do, it's how Villa see it. And Villa go, right, do you know what? We are miles ahead of where we thought we'd be. We have a genuine shot at top 4. What do you need? We're going to go get this. It all depends what other teams are around. I mean, Liverpool could strengthen, Arsenal could strengthen, Man City could strengthen. And we need to move with them. We need to make sure if we do this January well, Yeah, I think we could maybe push for third. I think third would be the highest I personally think we could do if we manage January well. It comes down to, like you said, Tim, if January is handled well, but we've got to make sure. This is why I keep going on about how much this January, we always say, oh, this January is the one, or this summer is the one where he's got to get it right. You go back to this, we are in a genuine chance of doing something with this manager. The last time I would say we were in this kind of position, we all know what happened with Tevez and Cahill and Zaha and Nelson when we're second in the league and going for a title. Things have changed since then, big time. But we're in a similar position where we could be challenging. We've got the right man in, got a really good structural and foundations built in. And January, with injuries and suspensions and people away in Africa, international duty, this January isn't just about making up the numbers. This is about bringing genuine quality in. I don't care if we just bring in 2 people, as long as they fit Angie's profile and plug holes that we need, because we will have holes in January. We will have holes. It could go on to February with Maddison and Van der Ven. So it's vital. But if we do this right, if we literally set our stall out early and get things done right, we could seriously... for me, what it comes down to as well, we need to go on the most astonishing run between now and April or the end of March, because April is ridiculous for our fixtures, and we need to be in that race well and truly, because April is going to be one hell of a month.
I agree with you. April's going to be extremely tough, but is it not fair to say that even looking at that run in April, if we take that run like game by game, we've shown this season that when we can compete with all the good teams, or even away from home, we got a draw at the Emirates, draw at the Etihad. Like obviously we beat Liverpool, got a bit of luck with that, but we beat Liverpool at home. Like, is it not fair to say that there's no reason to go into that run? Like, I mean, look, depends what kind of form we're in at that point, and injuries at that point as well. April's a long way away from that, but it's fair to say that we're definitely not going to roll over these big teams. We can compete with them on a game by game basis, can't we? Like if we're showing how we've competed them so far this season early on, hopefully we'll be even more down the line in our project later on in the season. Like it's not like we're going to definitely lose all those games.
No.
Is anyone else sensing that Sim thinks we can win the title?
I'm not saying
he's waiting for someone to say it.
But just look at the position we're in. Isn't that not
the position we're in?
Do you feel like it's a false position, Josh? Is it a false position?
Do you not expect to lose more points when we're losing some of our best players over the next month?
Villa, Liverpool, and Arsenal have all got players going to the away as well. Like
nowhere near as important as our players. Our biggest goal contributor. I know Salah's going, fair enough, but we've got our biggest goal contributor and our best midfielder. Like I don't expect to pick up more points than we have in the past few months in January and February. I just don't. So
January, how many games are actually missing? They're missing what, 2, maybe 3 Premier League games? And
but what I will say, Tim, with what Josh just said, with Salah going, all right, he's not of the same quality, but Gapco just goes in, or a Diaz they've got the quality.
Jota, yeah, exactly.
Ready. Jota didn't even think. They've got the quality, and we know they can do it in the Premier League, ready to go. We're looking at, if Richarlison gets his back strain, we're looking at Veliz.
How could I honestly? I know I'm pessimistic, but how could anyone genuinely think that we're going to pick up more points in the next 6 weeks than we have in, like, let's say November or October or something like that? And that's what we would have to do to have a chance to keep pace.
Okay, put it this way: by the time everyone comes back mid-Feb, what would the points gap have to be for you to feel like we actually have a chance?
3 points.
At that point. 3
points off the top.
Anything more than 3, you're like, it's too much.
Yeah, I think, because it becomes 2 games. Then you need to catch them in 2 games, and we're in February, March, April. You're almost, we're on the home stretch almost. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, we need to be within 1 game of them, in my opinion.
Let me ask a question. So, if we get Van der Ven back and Maddison, irrespective of players that we do or don't get in, additionally to that, so we lost Sarr, we lost Basuma and Son, right? I don't know when Son comes back, but we can argue, I think, beginning of January, we got the FA Cup. I'm just looking at the fixtures now. We got United away, we got Brentford at home, then we got Everton away, and then we got Brighton at home. Then hopefully, I think everyone's back potentially for that Wolves game on the 17th. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, the final of both competitions is the 11th of Feb. So if everyone makes the final, then that's when
there might be a little leeway of rest and stuff. But for argument's sake, United away, if we have Maddison and Van der Ven back, irrespective of, Richarlison's coming into form, which is really good to see at a very good time. And I think our front three currently, again, irrespective of players coming in or not, we should really be beating United, even on their own turf. I know we've been unlucky there, and unlucky is a good word to use at Old Trafford. It's been one of those kind of annoying games. Brentford at home, I would expect to win. The Everton away game's probably the only one out of the four that I'm partially concerned about, because they have really good form now at home. The home ground is fantastic, fan-wise. The Brighton at home game, in previous seasons, would have been a bit worried. I don't think Brighton are the team that they were in previous seasons. So I'm not too worried, personally, about this AFCON period. Other teams around us, yes, are only losing like maybe one player. I just chucked the list of players in a really poor way in the comments, purely from the fact that Arsenal are losing a player. I think there's a couple of teams around us that are losing one or two as well as the Asian Cup as well. So partially some of them
are they losing? What players?
Yeah, exactly. I know your point. I know what you say. Some of their players are not as big of impact players as we are. However, what I would say is that the way that we have been playing, even without some of the players for most of the season, or like the last few months, we have still put in decent performances. And I think that irrespective of losing the 3 players that we have, and irrespective of what Arsenal and Liverpool and whatever they do in their performances, because they've had dodgy fixtures and results like everyone else, I firmly believe, like, without that Everton game, we should be picking up at least, I would say, 9 points possibly, or at least 7 points potentially. Like, I think Everton's the only tricky fixture out of those 4. And then before you know it, the middle of February, the whole team's back. Touch wood, no injuries. And that everyone is back by then. So, but that is only dependent on if Maddison and Van der Ven come in or back in time for those, United Brentford games in particular, and are in top form. You've got to remember that they're coming back from, quite big injuries. Van der Ven's one hamstring. That's not one thing that you just come in and play miraculously. It's going to take a bit of time. Same with Maddison's ankle. He's going to possibly be conscious that is a serious injury that he's had as well. So that's banking on those things. But irrespective of those scenarios, I think if you look at the fixtures that we got, let's forget everyone else for now, because they have to deal with it in their own way as much as we do. I think we've got really good fixtures in that gap that we have to fulfill. So that's why I'm not so worried about it like many other people are. But I don't know what everyone else thinks about that fixture aspect.
No, I think it's a fairly good point. I think you look at those fixtures, I'm sure there's obviously good chances that we maybe drop some unexpected points, but you don't look at those fixture lists and think, even with the injuries, there's no chance we win some of those games. We can win those games even with depleted teams. But obviously, you probably, if you take away the players, you're going to probably be banking on, if you're looking at pessimistically, I guess, you're probably banking on Tottenham dropping some unexpected points with the injury list that we do have. Maybe a Bournemouth at home who are in very good form. Maybe they could be too much for us. Maybe we lose to like an Everton away or something like that off the back of the team that we have. So I think on paper it's not too bad, but obviously football's not played on paper.
I think United will have a new manager by then. I honestly do believe that, honestly. And so I don't think that's going to be a simple game at all. I think they've just got Ineos in, and I think if they drop any points in the next game, now that the new owners are in, I think he'll be gone. And I think we could be facing a resurgent United. So I actually look at that game as a game that we could potentially drop points in as well.
Fair enough. We were talking about January. We'll move on to the next topic. And we're talking about what we need in January. And there's been a lot of talk about from fans anyway, looking at a potential new striker. Obviously, there's been a few reports like Tottenham looking at Tony and Solanke, whether that be true or not, I don't know. But what I guess the question is for the next topic, is a striker one of the priorities in January in your opinion? Is, we've got two strikers at the moment, two players playing the number 9 at the moment, in Son and Richarlison. Obviously, Richarlison has picked up his form last 3 games, 4 goals in the last 3 games. He's now got 5 all season. Son is the second top goal scorer in the Premier League with 11 Premier League goals. But a lot of people do feel with this team, if we did have, there's been a few games, haven't there, where we've just missed loads of chances, and if we were a bit more clinical, we definitely would have won those games. Oh, Josh has seemed to have dropped out. Was back in, there he is. So what I was going to say is a lot of fans feel that a striker should be one of our priorities, and that should be something we do look to bring in as maybe after a centre back as one of our main priorities. I'll go to you first, Brian. For you, do we need to sign a number 9 this January?
For me, it's kind of like when you get a bonus track on a CD or bonus features on a DVD. It's not the main necessity. We all centre back without a question of a doubt. I would say a winger without a doubt. Depending on what Reguilon, if he stays or goes, we need cover for Destiny. I would say, and I hate using these words because someone uses these words, if an opportunity arises, then we go and take it. I think there are bigger things that we need to address before we do that. So if one comes about, I would love, like this Dominic Solanke one. I love that link. Love it. I think he's come on. He's shown this season he can do it. Another one that I don't know how much it cost, but I rate him is Archer from Sheffield United. Really, really rate that kid. I don't want us to be going and blowing a huge amount of money on a striker when the centre back is everything to me. That is the thing that you need to see through the door straight away. So for me, a striker, if it becomes available, but it shouldn't be on the agenda.
What do you feel, Si? Do you feel the club, we will be looking at the situation and we'll be feeling we should be spending big on a striker this January, and if we do, we really put ourselves in an unbelievable position? Or do you feel we've got 2 number 9s right now who both, when they do play in that position, they are scoring? So is there a massive need to go big and splash big on a striker?
I think that it will be a balancing act for them in the sense that the purchase, kind of to Brian's point, is not wasting money. It has to be done in a long run vision, not just to be like, oh, we just need someone to fill the gap for a month or so, because then that player or the players that are missing have to then be cohesive for the rest of the season and beyond that. So there's an argument to say that who's your starting lineup, and then if you bring in a decent striker, one that's used to playing every week and this, that, and the other, granted, if it's a club that's coming, no disrespect, from a lower club to Spurs, they might have a bit more lenience in their mind to want to be able to sit on a bench a bit more and be happy in that instance. But 9 times out of 10, it's very difficult to find a striker where they were playing consistently, or you're buying them because they've scored a lot of goals because they play all the time, to then potentially going back to a bench momentum. In that instance, because what our starting 11 is always going to be, and the fact that the 3 players typically up front right now, with the exception maybe of Johnson, all 3 or 4 of those attacking players can play in each of those positions. So we have a massive advantage there. So it's going to be a bit of a difficult to bring in someone of a top level, because they'll know the score as well of, in a month and a half's time, when these players come back, or one player in particular comes back, where am I going to be sitting in this team? So I do think we have to be a bit more conscious and sensible in purchasing a striker in this period of time. And I think that's probably why they did bring Veliz in, because he's a target man. We don't know much about him at all because we haven't really seen him playing. He's playing quite fairly decently in the academy performances, but at the end of the day, he's arguably, from what we've seen, not good enough or strong enough yet to position himself as a top striker or someone that can replace the likes of Son for this month and a half. So that I'm sure they've balanced this in their minds, but equally, we know Tottenham's history in the transfer market. They're not just going to go and buy someone necessarily for that might be a lie actually, but they do tend to buy players predominantly that they don't want to just waste money on moving forward. So
no, but just to reiterate the point, is it, regardless of whether we need to be smart about buying a striker, is it a position for you that we need to address like right now?
That's what I mean. I don't personally, I don't think it is, because of the players that we got there. And exactly to my other point, that if you bring in a striker, you then got that cohesive issue of who's actually going to be playing in 2 months' time. So we're literally talking about four, maybe 5 games here, which is not massive. It's all condensed within a month anyway, and making like decisions that are that big for that amount of games is not possible. If there's an argument to say you're bringing a striker because we think we're going to go and try and win the title, or we need it for top 4, that's another conversation. But again, I don't think we need that, because we have 3 or 4 players immediately there. Let's take Son out of the equation for this month. You got 3 players that can play in either of those 3 positions if you wanted them to. We've seen how Richarlison's effective on the wing, whether people like it or not. He's a good player, and he's been effective up front after his operation, which is fantastic to see. Ticks the box on both of them. We know Kulu can play in both of those positions. Johnson, as I said, is the only question mark, because I've only really seen him on the wing. Don't anticipate him to be essential, but you don't need him to be if you've got the other 2 anyway. And you have Veliz, you have Lo Celso, really, if you really need to bring someone in, and then all of a sudden you've got Maddison back. So I think it's a complete waste of time to get him in January. The only way it worked last year is because we got Richarlison at that price and that opportunity arose in that January period, and we arguably needed a player that could play in 2 different positions. And we fast forward to this season, and we see the reason why that happened in the first place, because now you've got 3 players, including Son, that can play in all of them. So I don't think we need one.
Fair enough. What do you think, Josh? Do you think a striker is a position that really needs addressing in January if we're really going to achieve our goals this season? Or do you think, is there anything to really be worried about when you've got the second top goal scorer in the league and you've got a player in form like Richarlison?
Yeah, I'd say no, definitely. Like, the thing is, striker's such an exciting position that you'll always get excited. If, like, say I was getting excited about Gift Orban last summer and all those players like that, because it's someone that comes in and scores goals. So I'd probably spin it if one did come in that was exciting, and I'd probably say, oh yeah, we needed this and all that. But we don't. Like, we've got 2 players. I don't think you could honestly find a better striker on the market that is even possible to come to Spurs than Son for this system, and then Richie for when we're playing like low blocks and stuff like that. Like, I honestly think against the big boys, Son would perform better than most strikers in the world. And then against teams that sit back, Richie does everything you need. He's got a bit of pace. He's good in the air. He's strong. He gets about and I've been one of Richie's biggest doubters. But he has just looked totally different since he came back from this surgery. And it's not just the goals. He really does look different. So, yeah, I would not. We were having this discussion before. People are talking about Tony and stuff. I wouldn't bother. I'd go and get a left winger.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, just 1v1 guy, I was going to say. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree, because I think one of the problems we do sometimes have is when Son has been playing up front, and now with the injuries to Solomon and Perisic, there is a bit of a problem on the left. Just because I feel like Johnson isn't the best in that position. He's not as well. I would say he doesn't look as comfortable there as he does when he's on the right, or as effective when he's getting in behind. Doesn't seem to be getting in as good a position as he does when he's on the right-hand side. And when he gets in those positions, he just looks a lot more decisive when he's on that right-hand side. He knows what he's doing. And so there is a bit of a problem when we do want to play Son up front. You could play Rishi there. He's okay, but I just don't think in this kind of system he's perfect for that role, because I just don't think he's much of a creative force. Like, he doesn't set chances up for his teammates that much. And then obviously we've got long-term injuries to Solomon and Perisic. So I think there is a gap there. But I think when it just look purely at that number 9 position, like, I do think the guys right now who are stepping in, whether it be Richarlison or Son, are doing quite a good job. So I don't see the need to be worried about that. Like, when you've got, it's just weird to hear people calling for a striker saying it's like we massively need it when we've got the second top goal scorer in the league right now, playing in that position. And we all know how clinical someone like Son is in that position. But it's also weird to think about, this conversation when you take into context what happened in the summer and selling Harry Kane, and now we're 6 months later and we didn't obviously sign a striker to replace him, and we've got that money for Kane and the goal scorer he is, and now we're talking about 6 months. Do we even need to sign someone to replace him? So I understand maybe that psychologically is still thinking, well, we haven't replaced Harry Kane yet, so we definitely need a proper goal scorer to fill his boots. And there have been games this season where if we were more clinical, that definitely we would have won those games a lot more comfortably. We would have had more points. But I just feel like, I think if you're looking at in a real ideal world, like if it was Football Manager and we could do whatever we wanted in this window, would I sign a striker to help support the attack, like a proper good number 9 that could potentially improve what we have? Yeah, I would probably in an ideal world maybe look at someone who's maybe a bit better than Richarlison or whatever. But obviously, football's not Football Manager. It's this is reality. And when you've got a good player, a 60 million pound striker, Richarlison in good form, and you've got the second top goal scorer in the league in Son, are we realistically going to go and splash 60, 70 million on another striker when we've got players banging goals? I just don't see that happening.
Tim, you know what we need? We need a player that I've missed at Tottenham, especially in this style of play. And we talk about it with Perisic when he would be ideal for Richarlison. We need to find an old-fashioned Chrissy Waddle. Chrissy Waddle in this team, if we had a Chris Waddle in his pomp, my God, we need a left winger or a winger that will take a player on, put a cross in, will find its man, like Perisic was doing. If we could have had a 1988-89 season, or sorry, 87-88-89 season Chrissy Waddle in this team, my good God, that would be the missing piece in the jigsaw for me. That's what we need, especially with Richarlison hitting the goals. We need to find someone to use. We saw his aerial ability for the goal for Notts Forest. We saw it with Sheffield United. If we can get those balls into him, my God, that's how important a winger is. I'll back in 1 second.
That's all right. Yeah, I think you make a good point, Brian. I think in a weird way, our system kind of values kind of old-fashioned kind of wingers, players on their strong foot on the outside, like proper Barclays of like the mid-2000s, like how we used to have Lennon on the right, Bell on the left.
Yeah,
that's like exactly what we want to do with our wingers in a weird way, isn't it?
Do you know what though? On that, I think that's what works best right now, because the wingers we have aren't able to do that when they're inverted. But the ideal to actually be like one of the best teams in Europe or something like that, like we need those players that can do that inverted, so that they can also be a big goal threat as well. Because if it's just Son or Richarlison in the middle waiting for the cutbacks, we're not going to be at optimum levels. Personally, that's what I think. Not that I haven't got any amazing insight to what Ange is thinking, but I just think that Doku or like just elite level winger that can go inside and out on both sides, which I'm not sure on Johnson long term. We'll see. Do you know what I mean? We'll see. But that is what's going to take us to optimum levels. I think we need a winger that can do equally inside and out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like in a real perfect system, what Ange really wants is someone who has equal threat going both ways, essentially. I feel like the problems we have is when Kulusevski's on the right-hand side, he's obviously decent at cutting inside, but he doesn't seem to want to go on the outside too much on that front. So he doesn't have enough threat on the outside. When Johnson's inverted on the left, he does cut inside, but I feel like his goal threat isn't as good as when he's maybe on the right-hand side. When he's on the left, when he goes down the outside, when he's on the left, his left foot isn't unbelievable, I feel, especially when crossing wise. So, but he's still a threat when he's running at you, Johnson, when he's on that left hand side. But he's just doesn't seem effective when he gets into those positions as much as he is on the right. So I do think we do have some issues with those wingers when it comes to just being that threat going both ways at the moment. But I feel like when Johnson's on the right, even when he cuts inside, he kind of cuts inside and get it back on his right foot, and he's still a pretty good threat. And obviously, when he goes on the outside, he's a massive threat. So that's pretty decent. And then I just feel like at the moment, Kulu's looking a bit better in the centre. So there's just a bit of a problem on the left. Obviously, we do have Son who can play there, and he's doing quite well. And I actually think Son is one of those probably players. I think Son, so it's a bit frustrating though. Like Son of 5 years ago would have been perfect, like for this on that left-hand side. Like he would have been just a bit more relentless, a bit more energy with his pace. And I think obviously because he's so two-footed, he can go either way, isn't he, and be as effective. Do you think for the time being, having him there though is best for the system, Josh? Especially with Richarlison on form.
Well, look, this is what I will say is that it did look that way against Newcastle. And we can't really move Richarlison because he's doing so well. But in the last 2 games, I don't know if Son has looked great out wide. Do you know what I mean? So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Son has to play. For me, he's still my number 1 striker. He really is. Until Richie's done it consistently for like 10, 15 games. So, yeah, I think in a dream world, for me, I would have Richie as an amazing bench option, Son up top, and a new tricky left winger. Or I'm starting to think like if Kulu's just going to move around a lot and Johnson, I'm not saying he's been bad at all. I love Johnson, by the way, and I think he's going to be brilliant in the future.
Yep.
But if Johnson isn't like world-class elite yet on the right or left, then maybe we could sign a right winger that does the same thing. I don't know. And say to Johnson, look, over the summer, get better on the left because we want our wingers inverted. And you should be playing on the left. So, you know, get better at it. Do you know what I mean?
I guess a lot of our decision making in terms of obviously there are rumours as well. We want to sign a kind of a versatile forward who can play out wide and fill in up front as well. I think that would be a good compromise. But obviously a lot of our decisions into what kind of specialised position in the forward line will kind of depend on where we truly see Son's future. Is it truly as a striker going forward, or is it going to be do we see him as a player who's going to be consistently playing out wide for the foreseeable, and is that where his future lies? I, for one thing, I do think it's up front. I think is at this stage of his career is where he's most effective, but obviously he has been filling in back on the left in recent weeks with mixed results, I would say, but some good. So still got 2 assists and a goal against Newcastle and did get a goal against Everton. So in terms of like goal contribution, still doing well. So maybe, Andrew would say, I still think he's a very good left winger. But for me, I still see his long-term future as a striker, even though he's playing really well on the left at the moment. What do you reckon, Brian?
I think overall, I'm going to go back to what Josh said about with teams low block Richie and teams with space, you give it to him. I think what we've got to look at as well, for the first time in a little while, we're playing players actually in their preferred positions or positions they can definitely, because normally we've just put, Richarlison, you go out on the left and do what you do. Oh no, wait a minute, Johnson, we'll put you on the left. It's kind of been just a square peg in round hole and fill places. I think what we've seen with Newcastle and with Everton is we had a right winger on the right. We had Son, who can play there very, very well and has done very, very well in the last couple of games. Richie in his preferred position, and Kulusevski playing in this new position where he's obviously shown much better form and much more positivity than he's been doing when he's stuck out on the right. So for the first time in a while, I think we're playing our four main attackers in their preferred positions where they can. And it makes such a difference when you've got 4 players playing in, right, this is where I want to play, this is where I can damage, this is where I can have an influence and an impact, compared to, right, he's injured, so we're putting you there, then you're injured, so we're putting you here. I think having those 4 there that can all do their jobs admirably, and it's showing it. You see a difference in Richarlison, injury-free and whatever he was dealing with personally. He's either dealt with or still dealing with it, but it's having an impact if he's still getting it. Johnson was brilliant for Forest on the right, and all this Johnson talk at the moment about, he's not good enough, the price. You look at it, this guy came in on the last day of the window, had to get up to Angie's fitness requirements, Angie's understanding of how he wants the game played in his role, has had 2 injuries, and I still think there's a little bit of, there's a huge expectancy difference from Nottingham Forest to Tottenham Hotspur, like it or not. And I think he's just finding his rhythm. And obviously, Brennan Johnson was the star man for Forest. He was the pivotal one that if he lost the ball or did something, he was the talisman. Well, he's not here. And when he gets up to scratch, I think we've got one hell of a player on our team. But on the right, he's looked good. And like I said, going back to the original part of this question, having 4 players playing positions they can all play very, very well, rather than just being put there to plug holes, has made a big difference.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. I want to talk about Ollie Skipp for the next topic, because obviously he came in against Everton, played in that number 6 position, Ollie Skipp, and I guess there's been a bit. I would say some people were happy with his performance. There's a bit of a mixed reaction, I would say, to his performance against Everton. I thought he was pretty solid. I don't think he was incredible, and definitely not the level of other players we've seen in that position this season. And the question marks whether he's truly perfect for what we want in that position. But I did think he came in, was definitely an improvement of what we've seen from him so far this season. I think he looks a bit more comfortable in that position than he's been in the number 8 position. And obviously going into January, Basuma and Benedict are both going to be out in that position in that month. He did prefer him to Hojbjerg on the weekend, which was a bit of an interesting decision, considering Hojbjerg has been the one preferred in general in that position as a backup this season. So I guess the question, I'll go to Si first on this one. The question is for you: did Skipp do enough on Saturday for you to keep his position for the next game? And do you think, are you happy with him just like starting, maybe games there in January for the foreseeable while we have players out?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I've always been a fan of Skipp. There's always the argument that over the years we've had a certain level, and because of the kind of players that we've got in, some players maybe sometimes look like they're falling back or they're not at the level we want them to be, whatever reason that is. I think Skipp is a very intelligent defensive midfielder. I think it was a bit harsh for people to judge him on his slightly more attacking positions that he was put in. He, at the end of the day, he's coming in to play for the shirt and play for the team regardless. And some people just don't like playing in positions that they're not comfortable with, but he still tries to put a shift in. So a lot of people, and sometimes myself obviously included, can forget that. So we judge it on what's in front of us and how the rest of the team plays, or versus a player like Skipp. So for me, when Skipp's in that position and he's given games, and I mean consistency of games, there's not too many defensive midfielders out there that could be better than him. And I'm speaking from the heart there, because we've seen him come through the academy and everything. And when he was playing consistently, he was one of the top players, and everyone was like, "Oh, Skipp's out now. That's a shame." But then he's come back after all those injuries again. He's been thrown in the team at different positions, and people are on his back. And I think it's a bit of a shame, really, because we sometimes forget how good he can be or should be. And I think he showed glimpses of that at the weekend just gone. I was glad he started, because it was going to be a chaotic game against Everton, because they have got that form coming in, and he dealt with everything. I love the aggression of his challenges. Like, he's very accurate with his interceptions and his intelligence and getting that ball moving. He's not like the old Winks and all that. He's just keep passing sideways, this and never. He goes and wins the ball and tries to find a player immediately, like forwards, not backwards to goal or anything like this. So for me, like, obviously Bentancur would be obvious positions, Basuma, etc. But when you're talking about fringe players that you need to first of all play for the badge, and then secondly put a decent shift in, he's right up there. And I think you'll see, and I'm really glad in a way that he has this opportunity over the next few weeks or month or whatever he'll probably be starting them all, and hopefully so, because I think you'll start to see a really energized Skipp who's been playing where he's supposed to be played. And I think we'll reap the rewards of that, because the team is obviously unified as well, in the sense that they have confidence in each other and trust in each other. And there's certain players that come into the team in certain positions, you think, I can't necessarily pass it to them because I think they're going to mess up mentally. You think about it all the time as a player, and he's going to be one of those players that perhaps lets that freedom back to what we needed to get back to. I was always very interesting. When you're at the games, you maybe see it a bit differently because the cameras are slightly different angles. But I couldn't believe the fullbacks' positions were in central midfield on the circle. And it just identifies that when you've got decent defensive midfielders, you have the confidence for these players to really push forward that high line and everything like that. And when you talk about the Son positioning on the left, it's quite interesting because if Son loses the ball, there's two players to pick it up. And that's how we get quite a few of our goals this season. So I think Skipp will have an instrumental point to make and an instrumental part to play as well in these coming weeks. And I'm just glad that he's going to get the time ahead. And then people can judge him after these few weeks, not just coming in for 10, 15 minutes and going, oh, he was useless, he couldn't do anything, and he's playing out of position. So let's see what he does in these next few games.
What do you think, Josh? Do you like, obviously Hojbjerg in general has been preferred to Skipp in that number 6 position through the season. There are rumours that Hojbjerg could be off in January, but we'll have to wait to see what that situation entails. But what did you think of Skipp? And are you comfortable with him retaining his place, or would you just put Hojbjerg back in based on what you saw on Saturday?
It's another difficult one. I'd like to take this opportunity to say that I said Skipp would start, and I hope Ben's watching because we had that thing going. I got roasted in the group chat. Gavin, Ben telling me that he wouldn't start. I knew that the way that Ange was acting around him, he obviously likes him. He kept choosing him. He kept bringing him on when there was other players that he could have brought on. And I'm going to have I was quite down on Skipp, and I am still, but I'm a bit more neutral because what the Everton game did was make me think that maybe, even though Hojbjerg has performed well sometimes, yeah, and he's the more mature player, he could obviously play for another top 6 club, I think. What it has been with Skipp is that, I've been extra worried about him, but now that I've seen him against Everton, I feel like if he has Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, and Porro next to him, then I think he can perform to a high level because his problem for me is press resistance, yeah? I do get worried about him if he's pressed high a lot. But if he's got all those great players next to him, I think he'll be okay. So I don't know yet. I think Sai made a great point about, look, let's give him this run of games. He hasn't really had his chance properly. He's been playing in different positions. He hasn't played full games. I know he played Brentford at the start of the season, but, and so let's give him this run of games. Let's see, because if he does come out the other side a bit better and he could be our third choice 6 in emergencies behind Bentancur, behind Basuma, and he's homegrown, I'd love to keep him. And I always wanted Skipp to do well. It's always that homegrown thing, whatever. But I also, a few years ago, you remember when he was playing for the under-21s against Holland and that video came out, and I made some outlandish comments to all my rival mates, people that were Arsenal fans and all that. I was like, watch Skipp. In 5 years, he's going to be starting for England. He'll be benching, I didn't say Rice. I can't remember who I said, but whoever was starting, he'll be benching Phillips. It'll be Rice and Skipp. And that's not panned out that way, but I still think there's a player in there. I do think he's suffered from his injuries a bit. He seems slightly less mobile, but there's something there. Let's give him this next few games. I'm happy for him to start because Hojbjerg frightens the life out of me. I do think he gets a bit of an easy ride. He always makes a mistake in a game, always. I know Skipp hasn't covered himself in glory at times, but there's always something he does. Even when we were 2-0 up against Man United, if you remember, he just passed the ball backwards and just, and he'd only just come on. He did that the other day. Sometimes you catch him jogging back. So
he did it for the Newcastle game as well, Josh.
Newcastle 4-0, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just forget it. Hojbjerg is obviously not the future of this club. We might as well gamble on Skipp and give him a chance to be a homegrown squad player for us. So I definitely want to, but at the same time, I want to see him step up now. He's had enough chances now. He's not a junior player anymore. And I'm kind of 50-50, to be honest, if I had to TLDR it.
Yeah, I just feel like Skipp in this position he seems a lot more controlled than like someone like Hojbjerg. I feel like, especially for him, he definitely seems more comfortable playing that sixth position where he does pick up the ball, has a bit more time and space to play it forward, pick out his passes. And I actually think when in that position, when he has like the whole pitch in front of him, his passing range is pretty decent, and he's actually pretty good at like retaining possession, recycling the ball, that kind of thing. I agree with you, Josh. I do worry about him a bit when like maybe he's being pressed by better players, and I think that's even more difficult for him when he's in that number 8 position, where it's kind of he's going 100 miles an hour all the time, and he has to think even quicker in that position than when he does in the 6th position. And I think that it definitely hampers him a bit. I do feel just his skill set, his attributes do lend him to being a bit more effective in that number 6 position. Hopefully on Saturday, I wouldn't say he was unbelievable, but it was definitely a step in the right direction when it comes to his performance level this season. How do you feel about it, Brian? Do you see Skipp getting a run of games now? Is he going to be starting for the foreseeable in that position without Basuma or Bentancur? Or do you still think that with Hojbjerg still around the club, he's still a better option right now in that position than Skipp?
So Josh just said about Skipp exactly what I was saying about the forward line just before. Skipp has played in so many different positions in different roles of midfield. It's just been right. We have a gap that needs filling. There you go, Skippy. Off you go. You do that. I think he deserves a run at 6. Do I think he's an Ange type player? Not at the moment, but I think could he develop into one? Maybe. And then I look at Hojbjerg twofold. I'm a huge fan of Hojbjerg. But we all go on about people playing Dyers and everything and saying if they haven't got a future at the club and they're leaving, why are you playing them? We need to stop doing this and we need to start keeping the players that are here. So is Hojbjerg going in January? We don't know. If he is, why are we stumping Ollie Skipp and not giving him the game times that he gets that? And also, and I said this before with you, Sim, I think Hojbjerg is an ace up the sleeve to come off the bench, because whereas Skipp is mainly defensive and in the 6, Hojbjerg can be more progressive if we need to attack. Hojbjerg can also be a lot more defensive should we need to sit and hold on things. So I think coming off the bench, Hojbjerg offers a lot more versatility and can have a bigger impact than the other way around. Than if Hojbjerg starts and Skipp comes on, you're kind of losing a bit of Hojbjerg's progressiveness. So I think at the moment, Ollie Skipp has to be the 6. Do I think Bentancur could do it better? Of course. Basuma, when he's on form, night and day to Skipp. But right here, right now, Ollie Skipp's got an opportunity. This is where Ange sees him. Let's see what he can do. And I honestly think that there is a player there. But you've got to remember, when we went to Leicester, Simeon, on that Bergwijn night, Ollie Skipp picked up an injury. And up until then, he'd been our midfielder of the season. He was absolutely awesome that season. Started off under Nuno and then obviously flourished under Conte. There is a player there. It's finding the position and not saying, like Josh said, okay, we've got an injury here, you go there, or no, you go here, so we can get it. Let him play in his position that Anne sees him, and let's see what he can do.
I spoke about this with Brian on the review after the Everton game, so I'll ask the other guys this question. The fact that Ange did go with Skipp over Hojbjerg on Saturday, when by and large the season Hojbjerg has been ahead of him, do you think that is a sign of maybe what's to come in January? I'll go to Josh for that one. Do you feel like the fact that Skipp was picked ahead of him on Saturday, is that telling for you in terms of potentially what Hojbjerg's future might look like in January? Do you think that's an indication he might be close to leaving?
I think there's a chance that we just hang on to him anyway because of our midfield's problems, or like everyone being gone, Bentancur and Basuma. So I think we could just hang on to him anyway. But there's 2 factors. Number one, I do think at their best, Skipp is actually probably more of an Ange player there. At their very, very best. He's less mistake prone, and like Daigle was saying, Hojbjerg is slightly more progressive in the fact that he can score and he can assist. You know, he's proved that over the years. Skipp isn't really that guy. But he's safer and more intelligent in defense. He's less likely to play that back pass and stuff like that. So I think at 6, he is probably more of an Ange player. So I think there's a chance that Ange's going, forget about all the transfer stuff. Actually, Skipp at his best is more the kind of player I want there anyway. So I'm going to pick Skipp. But at the same time, even if you're weighing up the transfer stuff, it's clear that Hojbjerg isn't the future, whether it's in January or the summer. So, yes, that is probably a factor. Do I think it means Hojbjerg is going in January? No, I don't think so. It's not that I don't think he's going. I just don't think that is the main factor. Do you know what I mean?
What do you reckon, Si? Do you reckon Skipp getting the start ahead of Hojbjerg is any indication that Hojbjerg might be close to leaving?
Possibly. I mean, I think Skipp starts purely from what Josh exactly said and what I've said as well, is there's a couple of mistakes in Hojbjerg, and he has been the one that has been coming more often on than Skipp has, and arguably the most mature one that shouldn't really be doing these strange things. On the other side of the coin, I've loved Hojbjerg every minute. I think he's an incredible professional, and there's a lot of comments, and I've seen it firsthand when we go to the games. He doesn't really get involved with celebrations. He goes straight down the tunnel after games. That is factually correct. And, are we looking at things a bit cynically there, potentially, but maybe not? I mean, in the sense that his body language is the fact that he's a professional player. Hojbjerg is a fantastic player, a fantastic professional. And what I mean by that particularly is that he comes in, whether he's going or not, whatever his body language is after or before games, or whether he's, going in January, he comes in and puts a shift in. Sometimes it's not the best, but again, he's not consistently playing. So that always has an effect on any player. It doesn't matter who you are, it has an effect on you as a player. And in his mind, I think we've said it for a while, probably since the beginning of the season, when Ange came in with this new system, that maybe Hojbjerg doesn't necessarily fit that. I think he still has a good job to come in and calm a game down, albeit that the Newcastle one was a bit weird because he came on to calm it down and made it more frantic by giving the ball away, which is a bit of a weird one. But this happens to players. Again, back to the consistency of playing. You can switch off from these things sometimes. I'd love Hojbjerg to stay, but I just believe that he's going just from that body language aspect. And in that sense that if someone comes in for 15, 25 million, I don't think they're going to turn their noses away at that at all in that position, irrespective of all the players going in January. They will be looking at this opportunity with Skipp in these next few weeks to determine that as an answer to go, actually, we're all right here. And I think Skipp started that last game because Hojbjerg doesn't have the legs for a full game. I think that's the only main reason behind it, potentially. And that's why Hojbjerg does come in for those 10, 20 minutes. I don't think he's got the tenacity to play a whole game for whatever reason. A couple of seasons ago, fantastic at it, but I'm only going on what I've seen, in the last season. And I think that's why Skipp started ahead of him. I don't think there's anything cynical about it. But has clearly seen that Skipp has an ability to have an engine in him that can run that as much of the game as possible. But yeah, the bigger question is if he's going in January or not. I'm only going on body language to suggest that he is going. That's all I see in front of it. At the end of a game, when you've won, you're with the team and everything like this. He doesn't do that. He goes away. He's a professional in the sense that he's come in, he's doing his job. He can tick that box. That's all he needs to worry about. The camaraderies afterwards and the jumping around, dancing to the music after the game. Either he doesn't like that sort of stuff, or he's like, cool, I've done my job. I'm going back down the tunnel now. This is enough for me. And it's not a long-term vision in his head, and neither is maybe in Ange's, but we know both of them are very professional people, and that's what they want from each other, and they're getting it from each other as well. So you can't complain about it at all. But I do think he's probably off.
All right, let's move on to the last topic quickly, and then we'll end the show. This topic is surrounding our goalkeeper, Vicario, who obviously had another brilliant game on Saturday, made some unbelievably crucial saves, especially late on to get us to 3 points. And that's obviously off the back of look, let's be honest, he's been super consistent this season ever since we signed him for 17 million. I think it's probably gone as well as anyone could have hoped since that signing. He's been an unbelievable deputy so far for Hugo Lloris. And the question after his performance on Saturday is Vicario currently on form the form keeper in the whole Premier League? Is there any keeper performing better than Vicario? And how impressed are do you believe we've really got like our long-term answer here in terms of our goalkeeping situation? I'll go to Josh first on this one. Do you believe right now on form he's the form keeper in the league?
Yeah, I'd say. Do you know what? You have to say yes. You have to, even a pessimist like me, you have to say yes. And it hurts to say it, not because I'm not happy about it, but I'm always trying to like keep my feet on the ground. I don't want to like hype up, especially goalkeepers. Goalkeepers could just go off the boil at any moment. Do you know what I mean? Like I always thought Lloris was going to be amazing forever, and I just can't believe what he became at the end, to be honest. So yes, he has been. And yes, based on the evidence, we do have our long-term keeper. I'm so happy about it. And it's like, I don't know what the stats are between him and Alisson, but it's just him and Alisson are clear ahead of everyone else. I'm sure Arsenal fans would argue Raya's picked up in the past few games or whatever. But anyway, overall, though, I still want to see, how it goes in the really big pressure moments in the finals, semi-finals. Let's say we're challenging for a league in the last 3 or 4 games or something like that. But so far, so good. There's not really much to add, but yes, he's been probably the best keeper in the league next to Alisson, I'd say.
Do you agree with that, Brian? Would you say for you, Vicario this season, he's been that good that he's been the form keeper in the league?
I think he's been the form keeper in Europe. I think I think he is absolutely, and I'll say it again, the fact that I wanted Raya, how wrong was I? Congratulations to Levy, the Paratici, everyone at this football club for identifying this. Like I've said before, if you Sim, every other club, you look at the Manchester Uniteds and Arsenals that have lost huge keepers, Siemens, Schmeichels, Van der Sars, Leymans, they have struggled every single time to find the successor. Look what they're doing now with De Gea's successor not having the best. This guy has come in and is absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. When Josh is saying about getting to semi-finals and the pressure, he's right. But you look at it, the Man City game, that save from the Silva outstep of the foot. You look at the Everton game, pressure moments. All right, they've not been pressure games as in to get to finals and to get to semi-finals. This guy is simply outstanding. I honestly, I cannot describe how great this keeper is. I think the long-term solution, all I want this club to do is actually sign a keeper during his time that gives him competition. With Lloris, it's been 10 years of you're number one and there's people just in case you get injured. You're not under any threat whatsoever. You just keep doing what you're doing. You play. There needs to be someone pushing him all the time to keep. I mean, not saying that I think he'll drop off or anything, but we need someone to let him know that you got to keep performing. He has been absolutely outstanding. And you look at the saves like the one against Nottingham Forest. People love all the theatrical tip over the bars and whatever. His positioning, his angles, his everything. The way he's adapted to this club, the passion that he shows the fans, kissing the ball when the ball hit the post. Just this man gets what it is to be a Tottenham Hotspur player immediately. Like I said, I think right now he is the best keeper in Europe, hands down, not even a discussion.
And I think that's a great point Brian makes about his personality as well. I don't just think, obviously, quality-wise, he's been brilliant, but he seems like a really great character around the dressing room, doesn't he, Si? Like, he seems like someone who really fits in with everyone and seems like everyone's like taken to him straight away in terms of his character and personality.
Yeah, I think he's got everyone's back as well. I think that's a key thing. As a defender, it's common sense. Obviously, the last point of defense is the goalkeeper, and I think the defense has been incredible with the fact that they know that they've got someone incredible behind them. It makes a massive difference. I relate back to the Newcastle game where he's sticking his tongue out and just getting in people's faces and stuff like that. It's exactly what we needed. It's just a bit of an attitude, a bit of a character from that back line, whereas Hugo's been very sensible, relatively quiet. I mean, he shouts obviously in games and everything, but we always kind of felt like, is he the right kind of captain? He's a great professional, but do we need someone that's got a bit of a bite? So Vicario is not necessarily the captain, obviously, I think he's got captain qualities, and I think that just drives through the rest of the team. And it's been a while. I mean, Lloris, let's not be kidding ourselves, has made some incredible saves over his time and some incredible performances, and an incredible servant. Wherever he goes next, he's going to be a Spurs legend forever. There's no doubt about it. But this guy that's come in is another level. I've not. It's been a long time, like kind of what Brian said. It's been a long time where I've seen a keeper that really stands out as an unbelievable keeper. I think De Gea, when he's in his prime, could be an argument. Courtois, obviously, all of those kind of players. But I think it's great that we've got one. And he is very different to Hugo in the sense he's got a giant ability and he's got a giant character. And I think we've been missing that for a long time. In my lifetime, I don't know a keeper like this, but the saves that he's pulling off, the game obviously just gone against Everton when Danjuma came straight through, and it's incredible. The athleticism, the way that he's just been able to just reach these balls that you think are like impossible to do, and he's just nailing them 10 out of 10 all the time. So I think that's why he's got such a big spotlight on him. He's definitely, well, hopefully he's long term. I mean, if we can get 10 years out of him, that's gonna be incredible, isn't it? So for me, I think it's an absolute steal. I didn't know about him much at all. I knew of his name, but I didn't know he was going to be like this. And Don Paratici is the one to thank for this. There's no doubt about it. And hopefully more come in through the door in January. Not necessarily goalkeepers, but there seems to be a much better research ability, networking ability of scouting and finding the right players to hit the system, to play as the right character for the team. And this last window was impeccable. But my point always is that it has to obviously be as effective in January and the summer to come as well to tick the boxes completely. So if we can find a couple more Vicarios in other positions in the team, it's going to be a hell of a ride till the end of the season, that's for sure. But he's outstanding. Even on the 1-to-1s or 1v1s, I don't even panic. Like, it's like Vicario's got this. Like, I've never had that confidence in the keeper as a Spurs fan, legitimately. So I think he's deserving all the plaudits that he's getting right now, and there's not much you can fault about him at all, if anything.
Yeah, there you go. Unfortunately, Josh had to drop off, so he did say his goodbyes to us privately, but he had to jump off the stream, so we'll just finish it with us three. Brian, in terms of Vicario, you look at the prices that some of the keepers have gone for in recent, in this summer even. Onana, how much he went for? 45 million. Robert Sanchez for Chelsea, he went for 25 million. We've got Vicario for 17, and he's performing the way he is. Do you really feel like we've struck gold here in terms of the price we paid and the level of goalkeeper? Or is it a bit too early to say that yet?
We ain't struck gold. We've struck platinum. We've struck oil. We've won the lottery. Whatever terminology you want. At his age, he's only going to get better. He's only going to get better. One thing I will say, he's been giving Lloris a lot of credit with helping him settle in. The same behind the scenes, he's been doing a lot. I think the goalkeeping coaches that Ange has set in place, I think honestly, I honestly struggle to think of a team that have lost a keeper of the magnitude of what Hugo was to us. And I've got to remember, he's the captain. He's a World Cup winner, and he has given us 8 years. The 10 years, 8 of them, he was magnificent, absolutely incredible. And admire his loyalty. United came in for Lloris. Everyone came in, but the last 2 years were not good. And like I said, what we have found, and at £17 million, it's brilliant from the football club. It's absolute. This is the thing. I will give criticism where I believe it deserves it, and will go hell for leather with it. But I also will give credit where credit is due. And on this, without a shadow of a doubt, whoever made these decisions, whether it be Levy, whether it be Paratici, the club have struck oil, gold, platinum, whatever you want to call it. This is Tottenham's number one for the foreseeable, no doubts about it.
Yeah, did you feel the same side? Do you really feel like when you watch Vicario and consider how much we paid for him, like you really feel like this is being it's an incredible piece of business.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I mean, on paper and what we see right now, I mean, yeah, I I know Josh is a pessimist, and we're Spurs fans, so we kind of have an absolute right to be that way for the however many years it's been. So there is always a balancing act in my head to say let's see how he goes definitely over these coming seasons. It's his first exciting season, but there's no doubt in my mind. Like I think categorically there's not one keeper that I'd pick ahead of him right now. On form right now, absolutely. At the end of the season, potentially a different story. That's not a point of negativity. It's just like how we've seen players, and as I said, I mentioned a couple of goalkeepers earlier in other clubs, how good they were and how easy it can fall apart. But with the structure that we've got in defence and the way that he's playing and the way the manager, and exactly what Brian said, the people behind him, there's no doubt in my mind that Hugo is playing a huge influential factor in the training and the mentoring as well. And even Vicario has come out publicly and said how much of a help he's been. There's no doubt about it. So we can get the model of Hugo and have Vicario's abilities on top of that, and we have him for the next 8 to 10 years. This is where we define a conversation about, can we actually have a team that can win something? You need players of this ability, and we're getting them now, slowly but surely, across the whole pitch. But that goalkeeper one is one of the significant ones where, if you remove the mistakes that we've seen over the last few years where we could maybe have done something potentially, this is where I think it can be a defining moment for us in these coming years. And I think other teams, other managers, pundits have woken up to this. And it's been a surprise to us all. We're not going to sit here and say we knew this was coming at the beginning of the season. There's no way in hell we knew that this was coming. And what's going to be achieved in the future is looking promising. Exactly as Brian said, there's been negative years and years of this nonsense. And finally, through the right recruitment and the right scouting abilities, the research, everything, it's coming into where we wanted it to be, and showing that you don't have to spend hundreds of millions of pounds. You can, if you do the right thing, like some of those decent teams like Wolves and Brighton have been doing over the years, we can get some top players. And if they want to talk about profit all day long and we're winning things or having a really good, decent playing football, then I have no complaints whatsoever. But it has to keep going. We have to keep building this. He's a great foundational player to build around.
Yeah, I completely agree. What I really love about Vicario so far is what was really a lot of the times last season letting us down is actually a lot of times we were in games or even playing well, and then against run of play, Lloris would make a big mistake, and all of a sudden it will give momentum to the opposition, and it will change games a lot. I remember even there were games against Arsenal last season where we were probably level pegging with them. It was very even, and then Lloris made bad mistakes and we ended up losing. I remember there was a game against Newcastle last season where we were absolutely on top of them, and then Lloris rushes out of his goal, makes a big mistake, we end up going behind and losing the game. And Vicario, what I love about Vicario so far this season is I can't remember one mistake at all from him that's actually led to a goal so far in the first 18 games. He's been extremely solid, and then in big moments when he's asked to pull out big saves, he's pulled out of the bag, and he just looks so solid. He hasn't put a foot wrong. He looks like he's capable of some wonderful reflex saves, and from set pieces as well. It doesn't seem to get bullied, does he? He seems to come, and he doesn't always come and catch. He does sometimes, be forced to punch it, but by and large, he gets to those crosses, doesn't he? A lot of the times from set pieces, and he makes big saves. And he's made some big reaction saves. The one against Forest, the one against Everton when it came off the bar as well. Some people will put it down to luck, but when he's making multiple of them, you can't always put it back down to luck, can you? You've got to say at some point he's doing something right. And I just think it makes such a big difference when you have a keeper in goal who you trust and someone who, you're not worried about making a big mistake in a big moment when you're winning the game, especially when games are so tight. And that is one of the things he's done so well. And it's never easy for keepers coming into new teams, is it? And coming into new leagues as well. Especially, you got to remember, 2 years ago, he wasn't even necessarily starting in Serie A a couple of years ago. Like he got promoted with Empoli about 2 years ago. Then he's had a couple of seasons playing Serie A at a high level, and now he's in the Premier League. So this, it would have been. We've seen other keepers. Onana's really struggled to adjust, hasn't he? We saw De Gea when he first came into the Premier League; he was struggling. It's happened with a number of keepers where it's not been easy for them for like straight away to come and perform at a high level like they have, and even more experienced keepers than Vicario have struggled with that. And so the fact that he's come in straight away and played at the level that he has done this season is quite remarkable, isn't it?
You know what I add to this as well, Simeon? And my favourite Spurs goalkeeper I've ever seen, not the best, but my favourite is Paul Robinson. And one thing Paul Robinson knew is he had the Spurs fans on his side. They love that connection that you build at the South Stand now and whatever when you come down, and a goalkeeper can be a lonely place, and making those saves at that position, having the fans on your side, like at the end of Hugo, we're just like, oh no, if the ball gets to his feet, it's like, oh, you could hear it in the stadium. You could, with his clangers that were coming, with whatever's been going on, Robinson had the fans eating out the palm of his hands. And Vicario has got how important that is immediately. And there is a huge, I mean, I've been to a few away games, haven't been to home, and now obviously I'm back in Toronto. But one of the biggest, every time Vicario makes a save of any kind, the whole pub erupts into a mass Vicario, as in the loudest chant. He's becoming a cult hero after about 14, 15 league games. He has got it. He has just got it. He's got that connection with the fans. Everything he's doing on the pitch is magnificent, has helped it. But having that connection with the fans and the player makes a huge, huge difference. And he has got it in abundance.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. And I think that on top of his level of performance as well has definitely been sort of one of the best things about the first half of the season for us. So, yeah, brilliant signing so far. He's obviously in top form, Vicario, and he's actually been winning us lots of points with his saves as well, hasn't he? So, what a brilliant start to the season he has. And let's look, if he has the second half of the season like he has with the first, we could be talking about a goalkeeper in Team of the Year come the end of the season, which would be unbelievable to think about. But look, guys, appreciate your time today on today's panel. That will be it. That will be the last topic. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the comments, interacting with the show, and the clips for the panel will be out a bit later. So go check that out. If you don't already, it's in the title. But Brian, let people know where they can find you.
They can find me either here being Ben for a little bit of time, or on my actual channel being Brian. On Tottenham on Tour, where Cockerel Doodle Doo is on every morning. We have Andrew Management, and there's quite a few new things coming on in 2024, so they can find me and the rest of the guys at Tottenham on Tour.
Absolutely brilliant. Si, great. Thanks for coming on as well and giving your time. Feel free to plug anything or just have any closing remarks if you feel.
Hope everyone has a good rest of the year and a big 2024 if I don't speak to you. That's all I want to say. Love you all.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Appreciate your time as always. Thanks for a great panel show. Yeah, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.